Good evening. It is time to call this regular meeting of the Board of Trustees of the San Felipe Del Rey CISD to order. Madam Secretary, would you call roll?
Mr. Contreras?
Present.
Mrs. Guanajuato Webb? Present. Mr. Mesa?
Here.
Mr. Overfelt?
Present.
Mrs. Sanders? Mr. Smith?
Present.
Myself. We have a quorum, sir.
We do have a quorum. Let the record show that we do have a quorum, a Board of Trustees, and that this meeting was duly called in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, we'll have opening ceremonies. We'll start with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. This time we're going to follow the agenda on item 5, citizens to be heard. Betty, do we have any one?
No, we don't, sir.
We don't. Okay. Then we will follow on to reports, number 8 on the agenda. Yes. Okay. We're trying to find Betty, our secretary here, if anybody has signed up for public comments. Is there anyone that filled the form? We're good? Okay. Then, again, item 8, reports. First item that we have is item A, Valverde County Appraisal District Report on 2018 Certified Property Values. Mrs. Sheedy. And Ramiro Guzman.
Mr. President, we don't have a formal presentation set. You've received several communications about the issue that we had with an error in the appraised property values. We're here more than anything to answer any board's questions that you might have based on those communications. Just as a brief overview, the issue originated with a contractor that does all of our assessments for oil and gas, utilities. T.Y. Pickett does about 20% of the value of the assessed value. There was an error that was brought to our attention. We brought in the staff from the entities, explained how the error happened. We're here as a board to, one, take responsibility for that error and ensure that we institute the processes that need to be put in place so that it doesn't happen again. And so that's what we're here as a board to do. And so we just wanted to be available for any questions that board members might have.
Okay, I'll open it up to questions from board members. Mr. Overfelt.
Appreciate y'all coming this evening. I guess the biggest one in my mind is what safeguards have been put in place to ensure this doesn't happen again.
The board hasn't formally met as a board since this incident, and is on our agenda to meet next month. And so we'll report back with what changes and processes were made to make sure that this didn't happen again.
Okay.
Mr. Contreras.
Whenever you do meet, can you come back and do a presentation of whatever you did as far as red flags? But my question is, does the school have any recourse to get some of that funding back? Once they're certified, what can we do to recoup some of that money?
There is a process in place that I think I haven't done it directly, but would Ms. Yandekan be able to? There is a process that we asked our lawyers about that. It's called a tax audit. You do them every year. There is apparently a lengthy delay in that, but there is some recourse that school districts have available to them. Dr.
Yes,
Rios?
Superintendent, Dr. Rios.
Yes, Mr. Massa, members of the board, the audit process is done annually, but the amount of time it takes to recoup those funds is lengthy. So it's nothing that we could recoup for this fiscal year. However, sometime today, Ms. Valdez had a communication with the individual that we submit the certified values to. And can you come to the podium, ma'am? And I do believe that they mentioned that they would be contacting the appraisal district and allow them to resubmit. Is that correct, Ms. Valdez?
Hi, good evening. Yes, Dr. Rose, I spoke with Ray and Wood. They represent our district on property tax audits, and they contacted the state comptroller, and they spoke with the state comptroller's office where, because of the category that this is under, utilities, it could be resubmitted before the state proceeds with finalizing any property value, any certified property values, and that they were going to reach out to the appraisal district today.
I have a question in regard to that. So will they reimburse the following year, or can we see anything this year?
It would be part of our current year calculation, so we would be able to see it within updating our budget. Yes, sir. It would be this year.
And the other question would be, would this be dollar for dollar amount? In other words, what amount we lost in revenue, will that be matching the amount that we will be reimbursed?
I have not done that calculation, sir. I would need to receive those documents from the appraisal district in order to study all the different changes that they may have. But I have not recalculated to understand whether it's a dollar for dollar.
So they did provide a formula or something?
We use our state funding formulas.
I guess, Dr. Rios, do you have anything else on that?
Well, two things. One, really where we're going to see some of the money is in the state aid.
Mhm.
And because we're going to see it in the state aid, it won't be dollar for dollar. Now, I hope that it approximates that amount, but until we plug into the formulas, we won't have a good estimation. However, Ms. Valdez will continue to work with the formulas and the funding tables that we have from the state.
Yes, sir.
And as soon as we have a projection, we'll share it with everyone included. In the conversation, Ray and Wood, Ms.
Yes.
Valdez,
Mhm.
had also indicated that they had reached out to somebody by the name of Phil. So that name didn't sound familiar. Was it Phil Yalikaki?
Ray and Wood indicated that the individual that they spoke with at the comptroller's office was named Phil. Yes, so his name was Phil, and Herb Morales is the state comptroller's representative for our appraisal district.
And they had shared with them well in advance that there might be a problem with it. So I think that they had already been talking about it. And we should see some help. I don't think we're going to recoup the entire $600,000 because it really wasn't our money to begin with. It was just an error in how the data was uploaded. But we'll be able to have some indication. I know that Mr. Guzman said that they were going to meet as a board, but Ms. Sheedy is here, and she would be the one that would know the safeguards that have been thought of. So if y'all would.
We've had some discussions, but she has not presented any of those changes to the board as implementations of what's actually going to happen. We've had some preliminary discussions, but we'd like to receive those changes as a board and then present them to our entities. And we want to also really thank the school district. These tax audits was something that the Comstock School District was not aware of and had not taken advantage of, and so it was a relief to them that they were going to be able to have some relief, whether delayed or not, but that is something that they'll be able to also take advantage of with the lawyers that are helping them with their tax collection.
And, Mr. Chairman, to follow up with Mr. Contreras' question, would you provide us with a written, once we have that meeting, and I'm part of the directors there, but would you be able to provide a written, lessons learned and procedures to be followed to prevent this in the future?
Absolutely. As this board, if you ask me any question about the financial dealings of the appraisal district, I'm very well versed because of procedures that previous board members have put in place because of some history at the appraisal district. This honestly was a blind spot for us. We received these figures from this contractor for almost 30 years and never questioned those figures, and we should have. And so that's something that we're going to implement now and have available to our entities.
Okay, any other questions from board members? Mr. Smith?
Well, just from, I mean, thank you for coming, but it's like you jumped in, but didn't, I mean, for the, you know, this is a public meeting, kind of talk about maybe what happened.
Oh, okay.
For the
Yes, oh, so to
Public, right.
kind of bring loop everyone else in. T.Y. Pickett has been doing the appraisals on these for the appraisal district since it began back in the 80s. There was an error where a single person was in charge of doing the appraisals for the power lines that take the power from the wind turbines all the way to San Antonio and Austin. It's a partnership with AEP, and it covers parts of it cover from Comstock School District, parts of it in the San Felipe Del Rio School District. What they explained to us is that person used an Excel spreadsheet, and there was an error in a formula in an Excel spreadsheet, basically double assessing this power line company, and doubling that, and it's resulting in about an $80 million error split, about 50-30 between Comstock and San Felipe Del Rio, and hitting the county with the full amount. As soon as they found out about it, that same company, they found out about it. They brought it before us. We met right after Labor Day. Unfortunately, if this had happened any other year, hopefully we would have caught it because it wouldn't have been mixed in the same line item as the wind farm. And so because it was in the same line item and there was an expected increase, the magnitude of that was much higher than it should have been. But that's one of it's not the excuse, but that's one of the reasons that it went by. So when the preliminary values were presented to all of the entities, that line item was expected to increase, and it was, and that's where it went through.
okay, thank you, Commissioner.
Any other questions? Mr. Contreras?
One last question. Now that that the company uncovered a mistake, are they going to go back a few years? Hopefully they don't find anything, but are they going to go back and look if there's any further mistakes? There's one mistake, so.
Yeah, we will, of this magnitude, we really doubt it, but we are reviewing the full process. We're going to, one of the things that we're going to be looking at as a board is if we had submitted these in a different format, would that have been a better way of presenting them, and would more folks have been able to see that? So we'll be doing last year's or maybe even the year before's in the same format. So that's the only, those are the things that we're going to be looking at.
And this for Dr. Rios. Dr. Rios, are we going to do anything or review our contract? I know I've spoken to you about it as far as our dealings with the appraisal district. I mean, to our safeguards, so we can safeguard on our side with them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, we have asked, I have asked Ms. Valdez to provide us a documentation for the agreement or the charter or the MOU that we have that puts the appraisal district together to see what oversight the district can provide with the appropriate personnel to make sure that this is done. But obviously, because it involves the other entities, it would have to involve the agreement between the county and Comstock and everybody else about what oversights can be provided for those processes to make sure that we don't end up like we did this year, because as y'all have shared before, both things that happened is a combined $1.2 million for the district that we planned for and don't have, and that is a large part of the district's budget. So yes, we're in the process of reviewing that. We'll review it with our council, and then we'll share it with the board to see how y'all want to share it with the other taxing entities.
Thank you.
And the largest impact that the board has is that this board, including my seat, has 4 seats, and we serve at the pleasure of the entities. All of the board members serve at the pleasure of the entities, and you have the ability to place or replace any of those board members at any time. So the reason that I'm here before the entities is because we're responsible to the entities, and staff is responsible to the board. And so that's your biggest thing. I think tax law. There's an appraisal district in every one of the counties. I believe they all work the same way.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate all of you being here today. Next report is item 8B, Health Plan Update. Aide Garcia.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. Tonight we have Greg Coldaway and Gary Looney, insurance consultants from Brown & Brown, who will give us an update on the RFP for our medical insurance.
Good evening. Thank you for having us this evening. So, we've been busy for the last few months since we chatted with you doing an RFP for the health plan for the district. And
I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Yes.
Can you fix the microphone so that make sure that the people viewing at home can hear? Dr. Garza, raise the microphone.
all right.
Sorry, did I-
Well, it says right there, don't touch the mic, so I didn't want to touch it. Okay. Well, again, thank you for having us this evening. So we've been busy since we last spoke doing a very comprehensive RFP for your health plan. While I've listed a couple of goals here that we set out to do under Dr. Rios's direction, I want to tell you there's a couple of things we intended not to do. So we did not set out to lower districts' costs by shifting it to the employees. That was never our intent, and after our interactions with this board, we knew that was not your intent either. We did not intend to do radical things that would impact employees negatively. What we did intend to do is make sure that the health plan had the most competitive pricing that's available. We wanted to improve the service levels that the employees receive from the health plan. We wanted to limit disruption as much as possible were we to recommend a move, both in providers and who the doctors and hospitals are that are available to the employees are. We did not want to disrupt that as much as possible. And we did not intend to change the benefit structure itself, meaning we're not suggesting to raise the deductible or increase the copays or increase costs that employees see for the plan. So that was our intent. The RFP went out to 13 different vendors. Those included all the major insurance companies, Blue Cross Blue Shield, United Healthcare, Aetna, Cigna, along with a number of third-party administrators and pharmacy benefit managers. So it was fairly comprehensive in terms of the scope of it. We received responses from 9 different vendors, including the incumbent, which is TML. And when we narrowed all that down, we really had 3 viable proposals. So after discussions with the district staff and our recommendation, we are suggesting that Aetna be the vendor going forward in 2019 and continue to do it on a self-funded basis. So Aetna would be the administrative services provider and the stop-loss insurance company. So a couple of reasons. One, they had by far the most competitive pricing. The maximum liability for your health plan with Aetna will be about 15% or $1.7 million less than it is under your current arrangement. So we accomplished at least one goal, which is to get competitive pricing. We do believe that while there will always be disruption, regardless of what company you're with or what company you're going to, it will be minimal, we believe, with Aetna. As you know, they're one of the top insurance companies in the country. We've researched to the degree we can the provider network and list in Valverde County. We believe there will be very small disruption here within Del Rio or Valverde County. There is a small thing that they're proposing in San Antonio, however, which is that it would be primarily or exclusively the Methodist hospital system and those providers that service the Methodist hospitals. We were okay with that for a couple of reasons. One is by doing that exclusive arrangement, it does drive better pricing for the district in terms of what you're paying for medical services. Second reason we were okay with it is when we look at the claim data reports that show us where employees are receiving care, when they go to San Antonio, primarily they're already going to Methodist hospitals. So this is where Valverde is being referred, hospital is referring them. It's where most of your employees are going. And thirdly, we don't believe that your employees have relationships much with medical providers in San Antonio. They're being referred there for significant care, and Methodist is a top provider in the area. So that is slightly different than what you're doing today, but we don't think it's a major disruptor. And in presenting this to the insurance committee this afternoon, we did not receive a lot of feedback that that would be a major issue for them. The proposal from Aetna is based on the current schedule of benefits. So their proposal did not suggest changing deductibles, changing copays, or other provisions that would negatively impact employees. And also, Aetna has extensive experience in public entities. They handle about 35 school districts around the state of Texas. In addition to that, they manage the TRS Active Care program for the state. So well-versed in public entity and specifically school districts. They understand how we work. And we, from our firm, work with them in a number of other large districts as well. So a couple of other things that we wanted to bring to your attention. So when a self-funded plan moves from one provider to another, there will be runoff claims. And what that means is there are claims that will be incurred by your employees, medical services received in the next few months, which will not be paid by the end of the plan year, which is December 31. Somebody has to continue to process those claims and continue to manage them. It is always better to let the incumbent administrator do those. So we would suggest that that service be provided by TML. We have a proposal for them to do that, but there will be a cost to that. As part of Aetna's proposal, they are providing the district $300,000 in transition expenses, which could be used to fund those runoff claim administrative expenses. It won't be that much money. We'll have some balance of that to spend on other things within 2018, but their proposal will cover that cost for us. So another good provision for them. And performance guarantees, as you probably know, there was an audit done of your health plan. It uncovered a number of deficiencies with the current administrator. The proposal from Aetna provides performance guarantees in all those areas which we found deficiencies at performance levels far greater than what you're getting today. And in addition to that, they will have significant fees at risk for not meeting those standards. So we have a little bit of a way to hold their feet to the fire, and we also believe they would not provide those performance guarantees were they not capable of meeting them. So those are the reasons for, some of the reasons for suggesting Aetna. I want to talk about pharmacy a little bit, and this is a two-pronged discussion. Pharmacy is important because it touches just about every single person in the health plan. Almost everybody takes a prescription. Not everybody's going to have a significant medical service, but almost everybody will take a prescription med at some point. The pharmacy world is opaque, and it is fraught with all kinds of games, and where the money is tough to find. And part of that is rebates. Rebates are dollars paid from the manufacturer of the drugs back to the pharmacy benefit manager. Okay? So in our RFP, we required that all of those rebate dollars be provided back to the district and not retained by the administrator or the pharmacy benefit manager. So currently, you're getting 200 to 300. They changed their contract a few months ago, so we're not exactly sure, but $200,000 to $300,000 a year back in pharmacy rebates. The Aetna proposal guarantees about $508,000, and it provides that up front. So pharmacy rebates typically have a pretty long lag, 6 to 9 months from the time a prescription is filled is when a rebate would be provided. The way Aetna is proposing to do it is to provide it as a guaranteed reduction in administrative fees, which will amount to about $508,000. So it's a significant dollar amount difference, and it's a better cash flow arrangement to do it that way. So disruption is directly related to pharmacy rebates, and I want to explain to you how. So it does not matter which insurance company, which administrator, which pharmacy benefit manager we make a change to, they will have a different formulary for their pharmacy, okay? Meaning which drugs are covered at what copay, they will be different. The common everyday drugs, we won't see a lot of difference, but there will be differences, and it's directly tied we'll see differences on the name brand drugs because it's directly tied to these rebate dollars. So each pharmacy benefit manager or each insurance company will have a deal with a manufacturer of a drug. If there's multiple manufacturers of similar drugs, a different carrier will have a deal with a different manufacturer, and those rebate dollars are tied to that. So what I'm saying is that if we change, there will be some pharmacy disruption. We will manage it. We don't believe it is harmful, but people may be asked to change from one drug to another. But that is what's driving these rebate dollars, because Aetna will have a deal with a different drug manufacturer to get a rebate than United Healthcare did. So that's what all that's about. So I don't want to suggest that there is no disruption to make this move, but I don't think it is harmful, and we believe we can manage it. And Aetna will do their best to manage it as well by proactively reaching out to employees who may be impacted, because we will provide them data about what drugs people are taking, and they will proactively reach out to that. So I want to make it clear, the pharmacy rebates are a big financial deal to the district. Along with that comes a little bit of pain. People may have to change from one drug to another. So I don't want anybody to suggest that that's not going to happen, but we do think it's manageable. Lastly, employee contributions. When we met in July, you may recall that our recommendation was, based on the data we had at that point, that we may need to suggest increasing all the contributions across the board by 8%. Based on this very advantageous proposal, I think we can do away with that recommendation and would suggest there be no increase in employee contributions for the 2019 plan year. So employees can continue to pay exactly what they're paying today, and the plan will be fully funded based on the proposal that we have. Okay, so that's good news. Last thing, stop loss, as you know, is the insurance that the district buys to protect your health plan against catastrophic loss. Typically, the insurance companies, Aetna included, will not completely firm up those numbers until they have more recent data, typically within 120 days of the effective date or 90 days of the effective date. So Aetna was willing to firm up their numbers with data through August which just became available to us and which we have provided to them. So we should know in the next day or two if the numbers we have on the table are firm. Based on the claims data that I saw and presented to them, I do not expect these numbers to change. I think we'll be fine. So, but it is possible that they could change them slightly. So, bottom line, our recommendation is a move to Aetna. It will save the overall plan in terms of their maximum liability about $1.7 million or 15%. So with a high-quality provider with what we believe limited disruption to the employees. So any questions from the board?
Board members? Mr. Overfeld?
Appreciate the presentation. I want to go back to what you're talking about at the pharmacy there. When you're talking about switching drugs, talking about going from name brand to generic?
No,
Is
sir.
that
I'm talking about
what
going from one name brand to another, typically.
Okay. And then, right now, the plan that's currently in effect for using for going to the pharmacy, there I see it as really good, because some personal experience right now with what a family member's been through who's on the district plan, and it's pretty much no copay for anything there. So are we expecting that to change
I do not.
dramatically?
No, I would, based on the circumstance you described, I would suggest they're probably taking generic drugs, and there will be very, very little change in that. The changes will be primarily in the name brand drugs. So to give you an example, there are multiple manufacturers of diabetic meds, insulin products. So United Healthcare has a deal with one of those manufacturers and has a deal with a different one. So they're going to try to shift you to the one that they have a deal with. They're essentially the same. They're not biochemically exactly the same, but they accomplish the same purpose. So that's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Contreras?
Yes, sir. What are the major differences then that we should expect, or employees should expect, from what they have now to switching over to Aetna during the transitional phase?
So the major difference they will see is exactly what I've been describing in the pharmacy area. Again, we don't think it's going to be major, but we do want to bring it to your attention. The providers that they'll be able to see are essentially the same. There will be a few, I'm sure, that are covered with United Healthcare that are not covered with Aetna, but we think it's going to be very, very minimal. Based on the research we've done, we've looked at least the top 50 providers that your employees actually use, and basically all of those are covered and are part of Aetna. When I looked at the provider network for Val Verde County and just literally counted up the doctors, I get about 60. I think that's about how many there are in the county, and it's about what we see on your current network. So I don't think there's going to be a lot of disruption there. Any change can be disquieting for folks, but sometimes it's necessary to achieve the financial results that we're looking for.
What about supplemental insurance, dental, and vision for the employees?
Those products have an effective date of September 1, and as you may recall, we did an RFP for that back in the spring, implemented it during the summer, so all those products were effective for September the 1st already.
I have a question in regard to, let's say the employee schedules a major medical procedure, and during the transition, if that, let's say the specialist is not with the Methodists,
Right.
would they be able to continue with their
Yes, sir.
date
Mr.
of
Mesa, there is a
procedure?
process called transition of care designed for that exact circumstance. So if an employee has a major condition that either has procedure scheduled, or maybe it's just an ongoing, maybe it's a cancer therapy that they have ongoing, Aetna will work with that, and transition of care helps those employees to And it does give them access to those providers for a period of time to help them transition.
Okay, appreciate that. Any other questions? Yes, Ms. Webb.
I don't have a question. I just want to say that I am familiar with Aetna, and both in the San Antonio area and with the pharmacists. And they're very, very similar to TML. So thank you so much for your presentation. Appreciate it.
Any other questions? I appreciate the update. Dr. Rios?
Yes, but before we make the final recommendation to the board to take action, can we work with Human Resources and Middlevest to show just a very simple cross-reference on the savings per employee administrative cost that we were spending with TML and with the group, and per employee administrative cost that Aetna is supplying, and just everything enumerated that was shared so that we can present a clear picture as to projected savings.
Of course.
Yeah.
Sir.
Thank you very much. This time we'll go to item C, accountability, campus approaches, meets, and master's results. Aida Gomez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Tonight we do have a presentation on the accountability system. We were asked to present by campus the approaches, meets, and master's percentages. I also want to just mention that for October's meeting, we do have a textbook presentation that we are working on. We have 7 slides that we've put together to give you the information. If you remember, the accountability system this year has 3 actual areas that we look at. We look at the approaches, we look at the meets, and we look at the masters. So you'll see the elementary campuses listed in front of you, and you'll see the approaches which we have presented before. This year, our guide was to try and have a 30% or better. It was just a goal. This was the first year of projections of what our ratings, alpha ratings may look like next year, so it was a targeted goal. In 3rd grade reading, you'll see 2 campuses that did meet that, from a 46% at Buena Vista to a 38% at Chavita. Our low percentage was a 21%. In the math category, you will see several campuses that came above a 30%. You'll see Buena Vista at 33%, Lonnie Green at 32%, Garfield at 39%, Lamar at 34%, and Chavita at 36%. Again, Mr. Mesa, I know you requested the information, and that is just a ballpark figure, something that we had to target, something that we could give the campuses to work towards. That was our 3rd grade math and reading. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to add a little bit of information. This is approaches grade level, meets grade level, or master's grade level.
And if you looked at it, the scale score won't change for 5 years. They've told us that it's going to be the same scale score. What happens is a test this year, maybe I've missed 7 questions and met the scale score, and next year it might be 8 questions. That might fluctuate 1 or 2 questions. But yes, sir, you're right. It's approaching grade level. It meets it, which is roughly, if I looked at all the percentages, maybe a 75% average for the approaches. So in other words, I'm not passing my test at the minimum, I'm passing it at a medium range. If I had to explain it somehow, that would be the way to explain it. If I'm at the master's level, I'm passing that test very solid, maybe with just 1, 2, 3, 4 questions that we've missed. Does that help explain?
Yes. It's for the board members that don't understand the lingo in regard to school accountability, it's just to simplify for them.
Yes, sir. And that's just kind of a gauge. I'm barely passing it. I'm passing it at a medium range, you know, maybe a low B, or I'm a solid. I'm a high B, low A. And that's just the three. We always want to improve our meets and our master's categories. That was for third grade reading and math. In our fourth grade areas, we test reading, math, and writing. The students do have 3 assessments. And you'll see here that we had some high meets. Again, if I look at the meets category, we had Buena Vista at a 47%, Lonnie Green at a 42, Lamar at a 37, Chavita at a 36. You're starting to see more students who aren't just passing the test, but almost 50% of the students at Buena Vista in fourth grade reading passed that test at a 75 or better on the average. I can't say it's a 75, it may have been a 74. Everyone's a little bit different. I'm giving you a range. You'll see in math, several of the campuses met that 30% requirement that we had asked them to set as a goal per se. You'll see Buena Vista with a 34, Dr. Fermin Calderon with a 33, Lonnie Green with a 46, Lamar with a 39, and Chavita with a 31. That's the percent of students that not just passed the test at minimum, but went further. In writing, you'll see Buena Vista students, 48% of them met the meets category. 48% of the students who tested. Very high percentage. You'll see Lamar at a 30, and the other campuses came in at an average of 20s. Those are the 3 tests that fourth grade does take. As we move on to fifth grade, you'll see that now they take reading, math, and science. In reading, we had Buena Vista with a 52, Dr. Fermin with a 32%, Dr. Lonnie Green with a 44, Garfield with a 32, North Heights with a 36, and Chavita with a 53. All but one campus met that 30% or higher, and some exceeded it by 10, 15, or 20 points. In math, again, you'll see Buena Vista with 45% of the students passing the test at a minimum of the meets category. 37% for Lonnie Green, 46% for Garfield, 32 for Lamar, 33 for North Heights. All of those campuses met the 30% or higher, and some far exceeded it. In science, in the meets category, again, Buena Vista with a 44, Lonnie Green with a 45, Lamar with a 42, and Chavita with a 43%. Those are the scores for the elementaries. We're going to go ahead and go into the secondary categories. You'll see sixth grade reading and math. Those are the 2 tests that are administered at the sixth grade level. 31% of our sixth graders met the meets category in reading, and 45% of them met the meets category in math. Seventh grade, now they go to 3 exams in seventh grade: reading, math, and writing. In reading, seventh grade had a 34% that met the meets category. And you'll see in math it was at a 27%, and in writing it was at a 29%, a little bit below the 30% goal. We now look at the 8th grade score tests. Not all the students will take 6 tests, they will take 4 tests. But some will take reading, and some will take English 1, some will take math, and some will take Algebra 1, but they all take social studies and science. So you'll see in 8th grade reading, 16% reached the meets category, and in English 1, 81% reached the meets category. If I go down to 8th grade math, 31% met the meets category, and 93% of our Algebra 1 students met the meets category. Up on the right side, you'll see social studies with 18% meeting it. We also have some students that blended who take the social studies 8th grade exam as 8th graders. And in 8th grade science at Del Rio Middle School, we had 28% of the students meeting the meets category, and we had 9% of blended. We'll move on to the end of course, which are our EOCs for freshmen on up. English 1, English 2, and Algebra 1. On the side, you'll see the different campuses. Del Rio Freshman, Del Rio High School. The reality is that when we get our scores, they're combined. So you'll see the third row where it says Del Rio Freshman and Del Rio High School. But we were able to separate some of the exams to show you how the freshmen did. Actually, all of the exams except for English 1 and English 2. We were able to separate them for you. But the actual star scores that come in are in that all category, which is the third row. Then we also have early college, high school, and blended academy. So for English 1, our freshman cohort did meet the meets category at 36%. Now, that's just separating it. As a whole, I should probably just focus on that third column. When you combine all 9th, 10th, and 11th graders who are taking English 1, and this includes our repeaters, students who have failed it once but are now taking it again, we're at a 25%. At early college, at a 58%, and then at blended academy, we have a 4. For our English 2 combined, we had a 47%. But we do want to point out that at Del Rio Freshman, they reached it at a 90% meets. It's a very high percentage. We do have some students at Del Rio High School who are taking it for the first time and some who are repeating it again. And all of those students are included in that rating. Early College High School had a 79% who met the meets category, and blended academy is listed. For Algebra 1, at 42% combining the freshmen and the high school, like the report comes in. Freshmen alone did come in with a 48%, early college with a 64%, and blended academy came in at 42% of the students who took the Algebra 1 met the meets category. Again, a very high percentage. And finally, we have biology and U.S. history. Biology at the freshman, high school, or the two campuses combined, early college, high school, and blended. So if I was reporting to you without separating them, I would say that Del Rio Freshman and Del Rio High School came in at a 48% together. But for this presentation, we wanted to show you that Del Rio Freshman came in at a 55% for the meets category. Early college at an 83% for biology, and then we had blended also listed at an 8%. And then for U.S. history, we had one student at the freshman who took it and passed it at the meets category. That's why you see 100%. Del Rio Freshman, Del Rio High School at a 67% meets and a 30% masters. Just for clarification, 89% of the students who took U.S. history passed it within approaches. Out of that 89%, 67 didn't just pass it at approaches, they also passed it at meets, a higher score. And out of that same 89%, another 37%, actually out of the 67, passed it with the highest score they could. I don't want you to think it's three different percentages. It's the same students, but how did they score? And then finally, we have early college high school with an 80% in the meets and a 51% of their students who met the masters already. And then blended academy with a 71% in the meets category. That's all the data, Mr. Mesa, and board, for the approaches, meets, and masters. You'll see that we're always, the rigor that we put into our curriculum and the lesson delivery is to get the students to think at the critical levels that will get us to the meets and masters category. The days are gone where we just say, did a student pass or not? It's how well did he pass, because the higher he passes, we know that the more instruction the student knows. He understood it better, she understood it better, and they're just going to be that much more ready for the next course. So that is our goal, Mr. Mesa and board.
I appreciate you presenting the report. Questions from board members? Mr. Contreras?
Please excuse me, board, I mean, I'm still learning and grasping, but, you know, I basically, I see the numbers, and all I can see is the meets and the masters, you know, because you're explained it correctly, you know. The masters is a percentage out of the ones that meet the grade level, so I'm understanding. It's just, why are we so low? Because I don't see the 42, or I see the opposite side that's haven't met. You know, I don't see 30% have met the grade level. I see 70% have not made the third, and that's my concern. You know, so I'm still grasping, and excuse me if I don't understand, but that's what I want to see. I see those percentages just too low. I mean, so what are we going to do to raise the bar?
Right. I requested the information because basically it used to be a moving target, and it's not going to be a moving target anymore. It will stay constant from year to year. So we have a good comparison in regard to knowing what areas are low and, you know, what schools and so forth. But I guess to respond to your concern, Mr. Contreras, I think what is really startling is when we look at the gaps between the subgroups, they're huge, and that's what we're trying to close. So I see the percentage as being low, you know, that meets grade level, but I think it's going to be important to look at the increments of advancement from year to year as the content in the classroom again becomes more rigorous, and the questions and the exams themselves. But I think more importantly, it's about closing the gap with the subgroups and moving on to better scores in the areas that we're low in. And I see that I'm pleased with, for example, I think we've already acknowledged the math at 6th grade. They did a fantastic job. I think Blended is doing a tremendous job with the staff that they have. But there are many areas to be addressed. And so I know, for example, early college is always going to show up as a high percentage because we do have students that are doing a tremendous job. There's staff that is doing a great job as well. But I think more importantly, we're going to have to look at comparison from year to year and make sure that there is a forward movement in the scores becoming higher percentages. And then, of course, we'll be looking at other reports showing the gaps between the subgroups, and that's critical as well.
And like I said, I'm still learning, understanding, but I don't see the meets. I just see that not met the grade level. And then in my mind, I'm trying to figure out, well, if a freshman class has 600-700 kids, that means that 70% have not met the grade level. You know, that's what I'm looking at. So the majority of those kids are not where they're supposed to be.
Yes.
And that's what my concern is.
Yes. And I think, you know, we've always been concerned with the increments that are going up 2%, 3 percentage points, and we'd like to see that 20% increase. It would be wonderful. But again, I think if we continue to have reports of this nature, we'll understand, you know, what the areas, critical areas of improvement are, and we could understand, you know, how to have those conversations with curriculum and Dr. Rios in regard to improvement. Dr. Rios?
Yeah. Wanted to point out a couple things that, you know, if I would have thought about it earlier, I would have mentioned it. We had a presentation on accountability this past week because of the improvement efforts that we're required to undertake. And what I wish I would have provided you was the definition of meets and how the state articulates it. So for example, a student that achieves the MEET standards, they've identified a likelihood that that student will have success at college. So that's one of the reasons that it's so important. Approaches is passing, but MEETs describes the likelihood that the student will be successful in college. So I want to share that with y'all. The second thing I wanted to point out was if you look at this particular slide that's up there, you see where Del Rio Freshman had 90% of the students that achieved MEETs in English 2. And then you look at Early College High School had 79%. So that's 11 percentage points less than the freshman campus. But there's a couple reasons for that. One, 100% of the Del Rio freshman students are students that were in our advanced program. So we expect that you would have above 85%, and that's a good indication that the students that were identified to be in English 2 as freshmen were appropriately identified. But for early college high school, at 79%, I wanted to clarify that it's even more impressive that early college high school was able to get an A rating, or at least what would be an A rating, because that really is a lottery system with just students that aren't necessarily in advanced track classes up until the point they're selected. So that was a good job in working with students, because I don't want anybody to think that individuals at early college high school were already predestined to be successful because of resources they have at home or prior learning. There really is something neat that's going on in that small setting. And the third thing I would say is that wholeheartedly agree with you, Mr. Contreras. We should have a lot more students at the meets, and I hope that we'll have good participation from the board at Monday's curriculum meeting, so we could go more into detail as what we will be doing at every campus to increase the number at all three levels.
Thank you. And if we continue the conversation, basically this is, again, the introduction, but we would like to continue having items of, reports of this nature. So if we don't talk about it, then we're not going to address it. And so it's something that we need to address. And this is why the report. Mrs. Webb had a question.
Well, it's not really a question. It's more like a comment and then followed by a question. First of all, Dr. Rios alluded to the fact that English 2 had a 95, I think I can see from here, as far as approaches to learning, which is great. But when we stop and look at where our elementary campuses are, they're at 55, 60, you can go back to third grade, fifth grade, and you see those where the students are barely at approaches to learning, and you have 67, 55. So, like Mr. Contreras mentioned, my concern has always been what happens to those students that didn't even reach the approaches to learning, and what strategies are we going to be using to address those students that are already behind. And I'm sure that this will be in the workshop. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it might be an item analysis of these students as far as how many items did they fail on that test that they took, and out of one class, did half of the class answer the same incorrect answer? Did they get the same item wrong, and why? Or how many got the same correct answer, and make a determination where we failed them and what we need to do to make that correction. Because when I see the approaches to learning and I don't see all of the students being there, then we're failing them. We're not, I don't care how rigorous we are, we're failing our students. And we need to look at what it is that we are doing that's incorrect so that we can correct it and they can be successful. But I'm sure that will be in the presentation or the workshop.
And just to answer one question, I've asked for item analysis, for example, and they're doing some work, and I know that they will be part of the presentation. I asked, for example, is there an item analysis?
Yes.
Report, and it's, or the campus leadership, are they going through that analysis report? And that's exactly what you're talking about, like a high percentage that might have missed one question, and say 70% missed question number 29. Well, if there's something vocabulary or something they do not understand the concept, is that going to be, make sure that you emphasize what is in that question that they're missing? what objective is not being taught, perhaps? Dr. Rios?
One of the items that we'll share on Saturday will be the detailed data reports that the principals will be reviewing during the RTI days, and that goes directly to both questions.
And again, the conversation continues because, again, I would like to just make sure that everyone on the board understands, and that way we can focus our attention on those areas that need improvement,
Yes, sir.
and of course, accentuate the good is going on in the district. So again, I appreciate the report.
Yes, sir.
If there are any other questions?
I just want to make a comment, and by all means, whatever we can do as a board to help the teachers, to help our students, I mean, we would want to hear it, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here. So, whatever needs, Dr. Rios, I mean, whatever our teachers need to help the students, present it. I mean, that's really why we're here.
And sometimes, for example, I'll give you just, I guess, some reference to materials. I'm concerned with English language learners, ELL students, and I asked about material that sometimes we see at conferences when we attend our conventions and things of that nature, that there's excellent material that is there for bilingual students and ESL students as well, that perhaps they're not being introduced to some of the catalogs that are available so that we can perhaps bring them back, or I've asked for sometimes personnel to go with us and have those conversations with Dr. Rios. But there are materials that are presented there at the conferences and at the exhibit halls that perhaps our teachers are not aware of, that perhaps we can have those as resource materials. But again, that would be through the principals, meeting with grade level teachers, see what else is needed. Just as an example, this is what he's referring to. Any other comments? Thank you very much for the report. Go to item 8D, facilities and construction update. Leslie Henge. Like Henge.
Good evening, President Massa, Dr. Rios, members of the board. For tonight, I'll go through some of our updates that we have over the last month pertaining to the maintenance department, campus improvements at 6th grade freshman campus, as well as the monthly service requests that came in from that department, and then we'll touch on the technology department's monthly service requests, and then any updates that we have in regards to the new construction projects, including Laughlin, the portable building status, Del Rio High School restroom renovations, boiler replacement, and now we're going to start including monthly updates on the ESCO Energy Savings Project as well. For the campus improvements, the slide here demonstrates the new canopy that we had installed over the last couple of weeks. This was a request that came in on the teacher forum last school year, and our in-house maintenance department was able to construct and erect the system, and now when it rains, they'll be able to go between the two buildings without getting rained on, which lately we've had a lot of rain, so I'm hoping that it's being quite useful. Then, again with the rain, we ended up having a water main break yesterday over at Freshman, which caused the water to be shut down to the building. So after putting together about 8 guys out of the maintenance department, pooling all the resources that we could, we were able to go out there, and after about 12 hours, we were able to get the pipe fixed that was broken, working with the city as well as local vendors. True Value actually opened up yesterday to help us out, so we were very appreciative of that. But about 10 o'clock last night, we were able to put this new pipe system in here. This all had to be cut out and replaced. The first time we did it, when they started bringing the pressure back on, it blew. So we went back to square one with it, had to cut everything out, rebuild it in again. And the second time it actually took. So about 9:30 last night, we were able to get done with that repair. And that's one of the pictures towards the end. Of course, it rained off and on all day, so we constructed a tarp. Our construction manager was very instrumental in making this repair happen, so it was really a group effort. Everybody chipped in, and we were able to make sure we had water restored there for this morning. The ticket system, you'll notice, is different this month. We have a lot more information on here. A few months back, the board had requested a category or a breakdown of all the tickets that we had in the system. It was a task, to say none the least, but we were able to do it on the maintenance side because of how the ticket system is. We were able to actually show a breakdown. So on the right-hand side, based on trades, we have heating and air conditioning tickets that are open of 151, electrician 147, plumbing 114, painting request 171, carpentry 167, welders 44, and locksmith 94. All these tickets here, this is district-wide. We can get even granular with it if we need to, but I just don't want to throw that much information all out there at once, because then it gets real confusing at that point. But we are targeting where the high-ticket counts are, and now we're putting systems in place to try and deal with those and make sure that we have the staff appropriate to be able to meet some of these needs. On the left-hand side, I'm still including the total ticket count for the month. The 30-day-old tickets, 60-day-old, 90-day-old. We're also running monthly reports on the security requests. Currently, we don't have any of those in the system. The overall open tickets that we had for the month were 516, and actual completion on them were 95. Those numbers are low, but a lot of that's due to changing the reporting system that we have right now, so I'm anticipating those numbers are going to start increasing and leveling out over the next couple of months. So we're going to continue to watch that. The technology department, that one is a little more sophisticated when it comes to being able to break it down by individual skill set or level of support. So we are still continuing to work on that. But at this point, we're including the 30, 60, and 90-day-old tickets like we typically do. And those number counts have come down as well. There were open tickets at 456, and closed tickets were at 200 for the month. Again, it's going through and it's removing a lot of duplications that we've had in the past, so we're starting to get more particular on what those reports look like. Laughlin Stem Magnet. We are currently working on an active quote that we have for the turf. The quote came in at $23,821.25, and we're estimating about 4 weeks on that. That turf will be allocated around the playground area to offset the landscaping needs that we have out there. The playground canopy installation is pending board approval, which we have tonight under consent agenda items, and the estimated time on that would be 10 weeks. Water fountains are currently being processed, and chain link fence will be starting installation on that as early as next week. And playground expansion, we have submitted designs and paperwork to Laughlin, which is working with HEB to determine if they can come up with some funding to help assist with that. The two playgrounds shown here are a couple examples of what we've proposed to be able to expand onto our current playground. Surplus portable buildings, not much has changed there. The city did come and pick up 2 of them, and since relocated them, we've sent out some more asbestos paperwork for submittals, and we're waiting on scheduling some more time in which we can hopefully remove the ones that we have listed over here on the right-hand side, which are currently up at the warehouse. Ram Stadium, the asphalt, we received 13 truckloads of asphalt. Now we're fighting with the rain in order to get it laid down and get it cured. So as soon as we can get some dry time in there, that's ready to start getting laid out. The air conditioning for the concession stand is being processed. So that'll be air conditioning for the concession stand as well as the restrooms. And then we'll be bringing our storage back in under the bleachers. Restroom renovations, we were able to successfully open up the first round of restrooms today. And demo has begun on the second large set of restrooms located to the left of the main office. Just a couple different pictures of what those look like. The pictures don't do justice because of the mirrors. So, but they are really nice. The kids are very excited about them. I was up there this morning. Boiler replacement, we are starting to receive parts in for the boilers, and the cranes have arrived on site at the high school, so I've included the schedule here on what that looks like with the installation of the cooling towers coming in around Christmas time. And the ESCO project, we are starting to receive equipment for that. We've received the water subcontractor equipment. The lighting equipment should be coming in this week. And then we'll be entering into the different phases of it with the completion dates listed there. 11/5 of 2018 on the first round of installation for the lighting. Questions?
Questions from board members? Mr. Contreras?
Can you go back to the ticket numbers,
Yes, sir.
to the very first slide? Second,
Waiting for it to catch up here.
at that point, one is why do we have, and by the way, I like the new format.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you. But it seems that we have too many tickets between a month to 3 months waiting time. So my question is, who follows up after the job is done, and at what point do we actually close the ticket? You know, after we fix it, or after we get back to the person that submitted the ticket and said, hey, this is why we can't fix it, if that's the case. And then do we explain that some of those, the HVAC and some of those might be due to the ESCO project? I mean, do we actually follow up and check it and then close it? I mean, how does that work?
Yes, the team leads do communicate with our end users, and we are addressing, like the immediate lighting issues right now, we are targeting that and working on it until the Snyder stuff starts up, which is going to hopefully be here in the next couple of weeks. The numbers really look off right now because we have gone through and made a lot of changes to be able to give us these additional reports by trade. So I'm really going to be able to gauge this more into next month. I do work on this weekly to get updates on it. And basically, when we were trying to get these reports out of the system, it was something that the system wasn't already set up to do, so we had to manipulate a bunch of back-end code to be able to produce this information. So it should start getting more accurate now. And then the system also communicates automatically with the end users, too.
Okay, and then just a comment, I visited the new restrooms at the high school, and they're great. The color scheme is great. To me, it just seems cowboy colors, so go Cowboys. So, but the restrooms are coming out really, really nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Overfeld?
No, he kind of, I'm going to echo it there as well. I heard comments already today from students about the restroom, so it's amazing the little things that can go in and make them happy there, because I can imagine, because I know when we were there, they were bad, and that was 20-something years ago. So thank you for getting that done.
And I had a question in regard to the ESCO project.
Yes, sir.
I guess my question has to do with the abatement of asbestos. And I guess originally there was asbestos discovered, for example, in the chillers that we had. And then I know there's a change order coming up.
Yes.
And is it possible for them to look and find, so I guess I'm trying to coordinate when they come and they remove the asbestos, if they could do it where asbestos is found, instead of going, and discovering it some other place and then calling them back again to come and do that? Is there a way of this, this ESCO project can be looked at as, let's see where else we have asbestos and remove it and give us a, one ticket expense?
Due to the age of the building, you don't have to look far to find it, and it's fine that it's there as long as it's not disturbed. So we're really targeting right now any areas that it has to be disturbed is where we're abating as we go. And that's really the best answer that we ran into right now.
So,
Dr. Ray?
yeah, the problem, Mr. Renzo, what you're asking can be very easily done. Really, I think what Mark and Les shared with me was that anything that was built prior to 80, I believe, you're going to have asbestos in it. But the other part is the expense associated with removing it. Whether they charge by the foot, the linear foot, is very expensive. That's why we'll definitely get an estimate. I don't want to dismiss your request, but it would be cost prohibitive to do that. And if we have that money to invest, then we'd probably be better off investing it somewhere else that's more of an urgent need, but we'll definitely share those numbers.
Okay. Well, it's my understanding now it's the boilers, right? This is where the change orders come in?
Correct. And we really are trying to locate those areas. So fortunately, we do have this new process now as far as being able to communicate, so that is saving us on time and the whole process. And we're working directly with Snyder to identify it and get the abatement company in as quickly as possible.
Right. And my question really has to do with, having to pay for travel expense again and, those concurrent expenses that happen every time we discover asbestos.
Correct.
So that's my extent of the question. Any other questions, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, I got a couple. So the this day, well, you moved it. Go back to your open closed ticket. So I'm confused about your September. Is this like month to date, or what is this?
For the maintenance one?
Any of them?
Any of them, okay. So the tickets that we're capturing right here are from August 1st to September 1st. So it's actually a month behind, even though I present it to you in September.
That's fine. So August is actually July, and September is actually
Correct.
August. Okay, got it.
Sorry about that.
No worries. So the other question is tied to that boiler project. Is this ignition date of 10/5, or is that we're going to start installing it on 10/5?
The installation date of the new boiler system and water heaters for 10/5, that's supposed to be turn-up date. Any of the dates that I gave here were the final date, and then if there was a range of dates, because the project takes so long, then I gave you what those ranges were.
And the cooling towers, those aren't necessary to turn just out of my ignorance.
They're coordinating all those efforts right now because some of the equipment has to be moved out in order to get the boilers in, and some of it they're able to work around it. So for those, I can get you those details.
Yeah, I guess the main thing I'm worried about is we'll be able to turn the boiler on and we'll be able to provide heat.
The plan right now is to have those on before it gets cold. So I would fully anticipate that with Christmas around the end of December, that date may move up on us.
Okay. All right, then I had one more. When we're looking at the base project, the playground at the base, so cumed up, how much is that project cumed up?
Right now, we have committed funds set aside this budget year for the turf and the canopy totaling $60,000. I've included the quotes here, one's at $23,000, the other's at $28,000. So that will take care of that committed fund. The water funds, I actually approved the PO on that today, and I believe that was around 4,500. Whereas here I have the original quote at 8,000. And then the chain link fence, the decision was made today to use our in-house maintenance people so we can expedite doing the fencing out there. And I don't think it's going to come anywhere near the 30,000 that we had quoted. So we're right at the end right now. I don't have the final number, but these are on the higher end numbers that you have here in the slide.
So somewhere around 120 to 140,000, rough math, for the full playground project.
Probably somewhere around 75,000, and that takes into account the $60,000 committed funds. So we're about 15,000 over that for these additional items. The playgrounds, we were asked to submit designs on that because Laughlin wanted to work with HEB to see if there was something they could do. If that ends up falling through, we don't have immediate plans of expanding on that playground this budget year.
Okay, so I don't guess I totally understood that. So you've got cumed up on here about 130,000 plus.
Right.
Just for the playground.
Right.
What you said 75 something.
Right, because the chain link fence, this was what we were quoted was 30,000, but we decided today that we're going to do it with our in-house maintenance people. This was the subcontractor quote.
That's fine. So it'd be more like 100.
You're looking at 60,000 for the turf and canopy, another 5,000 for the water fountains, so there's 65. I'm thinking maybe around 10 on the fence if we do it in-house. So right around 75 is what I'm guesstimating right now.
And you're thinking that HEB is going to cover a big chunk of the 53 for the 52.
Right, the 52,178, that is based on their request to try and help us.
Got it.
That's not on our immediate
Okay.
drawing plans.
That helps me. Thank you.
Sure.
And I got both my boys came home today bragging about the restroom. So good luck on that deal. Thank you so much. That was great. Yeah.
Appreciate that.
Well, good. Any other questions, Ms. Wood? Okay, I just have one in regard to, we just attended a safety summit, either through the webinar or on-site. And I've noticed, for example, where the portable rooms were moved from Cardwell Head Start, the fence was left wide open or torn down. Is that going to be at least patched up temporarily?
Yes, we had one individual that was supposed to be moving that third one out, and then that fell through. So now it's a matter of us going back and tying that fence up. We've had a couple actually that stepped up to the plate that we're going to get them, and then for whatever reason it just didn't go through. I believe we have maybe 2 more candidates yet, and then we'll start having to have conversations if we're going to give them more time, or what the long-term plan of those are going to be. They're very expensive to move.
But I'm talking about the fence. Will
Right.
that temporarily be put up?
Yes, that will be getting repaired this
Okay.
week.
All right. Well, I appreciate the report unless there's any other questions. Thank you for a great job at Restrooms High School as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we're down to the consent agenda. One action item will approve all items on the consent agenda. If you would look and see if there's any item that you would like to either have questions on or pull out to vote on it separately, we can do that. In the meantime, I'd like to have our secretary read the donations, please.
These are monetary donations. The Bank and Trust, $200 to Blended Academy. Dr. Carlos Rios, $600 to Del Rio High School CTE Auto Mechanics. Del Rio Football Booster Club, $3,874 to Del Rio High School football team. Life Touch National School Studios, $1,317.10 to Del Rio High School Student Council. Anonymous, $25 to Garfield Elementary. Now the non-monetary donations. Bill and Emily Cooper, $2,500 value to Buena Vista Elementary, 30 chairs, 2 Keurigs, 200 cake cups, 2 tables, 7 plants, and 1 calendar. Various donors, $976 value, Buena Vista Elementary, school supplies. Ramiro Guzman, $100, Del Rio High School Band, 1 violin. Various donors, $870 value to Dr. Fermin Calderon Elementary, school supplies. Various donors, $450 value, Dr. Lonnie Green Elementary for school supplies. Various donors, $820 to Lamar Elementary, snacks and school supplies. Pre-kindergarten parents, $120 value, Lofton Elementary STEM Magnet School for 1 water cooler. Various donors, $1,542.36 value to North Heights Elementary for gift certificates, snacks, and school supplies. Various donors, $375 value to Ruben Chavira Elementary for snacks and school supplies.
Okay, I'd like to acknowledge, again, all the people that donated school supplies. I think the community is coming together and putting all kinds of things to make sure that our students have the supplies they need, and it's very much appreciated from all the organizations that stepped in and provided school supplies. Also to Dr. Rios and helping the CTE program, automotive program.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. And again, in the consent agenda, you also have the meetings that we've had in the past. So if you could make sure that the minutes are correct, if there's any correction to be made, this is a time to do that. And again, at this time, I'll open up to any questions that you have. Mr. Smith?
Yeah, specifically tied to C1, bids and proposals. I got
What is the item?
C1.
C1?
Paula?
It's Paula Johnson. That would be on page 35.
Yes.
Yeah, so my question's tied to, minor question, but we submitted, we've used Highway 90 West quite a bit, right? And that's been for paving and like, hasn't it been our,
They've done some work for us with
yeah, I mean, they've been our, and they didn't even respond?
No. 90 West originally responded, and then he came in and pulled his bid completely.
Just pulled it out, okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay, thank you for that clarity. And then Von Builders, they got all the insurance and all that stuff.
Correct.
Yeah, awesome. Very, that's all I have, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Is there any item that needs to be pulled out for any reason? Voted on separately? There being none, I will call for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Ms. Gonzalez. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, we're down to administration, and that would be okay, item 10A, consideration to approve the 2018-2019 superintendent evaluation calendar. You will find that on page 95 in your board agenda book. And the following page has the dates. All the way up to June, July 2019. Any questions with regard to the agenda, of the schedule, rather? Then, there being none, it is a recommendation that the Board of Trustees approve the adoption of the 2018-2019 Superintendent's Evaluation Calendar and Evaluation Process as presented. Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Orfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. We're down to 10. Having trouble changing this page. 10B, consideration to approve the appointment of the local school health advisory council members, Yanakani Valdez and Dr. Jorge Garza.
President Mesa, Dr. Rios, board members, we have here a list, and we provided an updated list for you at your place of seating. We have here a list, and I'll read the individuals who volunteer to be a part of our school health advisory committee. And as I'm reading the list, I do want to remind you that the majority of the members must be parents who are not employed by the district. And on this list, there's only one employee. So the majority of the volunteers are not employees of the district. We have Angela Prather, Reynaldo Torres, Sandra Sotelo, she's the employee, Araceli Ramirez, Carmen Gomez, Rafael Franjul, Claudia Lopez, Casey Mollison, Lindsay Cooper, and I apologize for the misspelling, but Lindsay Cooper, Hector Guerra, Carla Maltos, and Bernadine Peter. Our first meeting will be scheduled in October after the board's approval, and we'll contact the members to see what date works best for them.
Thank you. Questions from board members?
Just a question.
Yes, Mr. Contreras.
Maybe I missed it. How do you request or suggest or appoint to a committee? For example, in this case, I didn't see an email. Maybe I missed the email.
In this case, sir, in the summer, we send out, we advertise or publicize on our Facebook page and on our website that we're looking for SHAC committee members, and for them to contact Estela Ortiz, which is my secretary, so that she could obtain all their contact information so that we can present it at the September board meeting.
Oh, okay. So we don't actually suggest anyone or bring up anybody. It's volunteers. Okay.
That's the process we've done before, yes.
No, that's fine. I mean, I just wanted to know.
Now, we always have to encourage people to participate, so feel free to recommend any individuals, and we'll tap into next year.
No, I just had a question.
Okay, the recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. Thank you. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approves the appointment of the local school health advisory council members.
Thank you. Board members, you have heard the recommendation. Is there a motion for approval? Mrs. Webb, motion by Mrs. Webb, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yanakani Valdez. Item C, consideration to approve the first reading of localized policy affecting FFAC, local, wellness and health services, medical treatment, and FDB, local, admissions, intra-district transfers, and classroom assignments. Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening, President Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. The Education Code requires the school district that adopts an epinephrine policy to have one or more authorized and trained school employees or volunteers present at each campus during all hours of that the campus is open. TASB Policy Service has developed a new draft of FFAC Local, which addresses the State Department Health Service Commissioner's final rules, which went into effect on August the 1st. The revised policy provides clarification to ensure that trained staff and personnel or volunteers are present not only during the instructional day, but also at any time a school-sponsored activity is taking place on campus. The revisions to FDB local include language which better describes and addresses the district's intra-district transfer process, including the general request for transfers, suspension of transfer requests based on capacity limitation, sibling transfers, and transportation. And if you have any questions?
Questions from board members? I have one, Sandra, and I think I might have already touched on it prior to this at our committee meeting, and this is in regard to if and when the nurse is absent and we have a substitute, would that substitute be able to provide the EpiPen or administer?
Yes, sir. What the school district has done is taken a proactive stance on providing training for all school personnel and volunteers at the campus level to be trained on the administration of the EpiPen. So we will have, once we have that all of the personnel that have been trained, then the campus principal will designate individuals who are eligible to administer the EpiPens.
Okay. My understanding is they do have to sign an agreement.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Just as long as if there's one absent, that somebody else could fill that spot. As far as a priority, I know that probably the nurse is first and so forth.
Yes. And during the school days, typically the school nurse is the person who's the first person that would be designated, but certainly you have school personnel that are available during the course of the school day, and then afterwards when there's a school-sponsored event.
Okay. The recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation.
Question,
of
I'm
the-
sorry.
I'm sorry, I caught it at the end,
Mr.
I'm
Overfield.
sorry. On the, for transfers on FDB local at the Laughlin magnet there, will, and I know it goes in order as listed there, will employee consideration, if an employee has a child who's of that age, be allowed to attend out there? Like we do if they are at a certain campus, they get to take their child to that campus if they so want, as part of that kind of consideration that we do professional courtesy. Would that be something that also happens at Laughlin?
Yes, Laughlin, every policy that we have applies equally to every campus, including Laughlin.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Then the recommendation.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the first reading of FFAC local and FDB local and the revisions to the language in these policies as recommended by the SFDR-CISD Board Policy Review Committee.
Okay, you have heard the recommendation from administration. I'll entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Mr. Contreras, the second. Mrs. Webb, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Sandra. Item E, D, consideration to approve the examinations for credit for students in grades 6 through 12 who have had prior instruction. Sandra Hernandez again.
Good evening once again. The State Board of Education recently approved revised rules on credit by exam that include a new requirement for districts and assessment providers to audit their credit by exam assessments. The enclosed resolution is in accordance with State Board of Education rules and with district policy that a student in grades 6 through 12 may be given credit for an academic subject in which he or she has had some prior instruction if the student scores 70% or higher on a criterion reference test approved by the board for the applicable course. and authorizes campus administrators to offer this opportunity to demonstrate mastery in a subject in order to earn course credit or a final grade in the limited circumstances described in EHDB Local. The administration asks that the board approve the examinations from the University of Texas at Austin and Texas Tech University, and in doing so, the board determines that the university certification and audit demonstrates the examinations are accurately and appropriately assess the students' knowledge and skills of the TEKS for the relevant course, for the relevant grade level. Excuse me. And we typically annually follow the approval for these these examinations through Texas Tech and the University of Texas. And what we are doing is we are reauthorizing those assessments.
Questions from the board? No questions. Sandra, I have one in regard to, I guess this is a resolution that has to be signed and dated.
Yes, the resolution is to sign and date that authorizes the assessments that we're going to use for credit by exam for this particular group who have had prior instruction. And in doing so, you're authorizing that Texas Tech University and the University of Texas, those examinations have already gone through their audit process.
Okay. Okay. Then the recommendation, please.
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution and the examinations from the University of Texas at Austin and Texas Tech University for credit for students in grades 6 through 12 who have had prior instruction.
Okay, if you have read the recommendation from administration, I'll entertain a motion for approval. Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. We have another item, E.
Mr. Mesa?
Yes, question.
I apologize, sir. I have to interrupt. And maybe since Mr. Schulman is present, he can help us out. We were supposed to inform the board under contracts G2. We had some math consultant, math curriculum, and because other elementary campuses jumped on the opportunity to participate, we were supposed to ask for an additional $6,000 to this contract. And I forgot to remind the board. So now that the board has approved G2 at $15,000 instead of $21,000, what do Robert's Rules of Orders tell us, Mr. Schulman, that we bring it back next month for the other $6,000, or? Yes. My apologies, Mr.
So
Mesa.
it's basically amend the motion
Yes.
with the parties that made the initial motion and seconded, and revote on it.
Yes. Will any board member please request that G2 be reconsidered?
I believe it has to be the original person that made the
There was
motion.
consent. It was consent, though.
Oh, it was- oh, okay.
Yes. Is there, who was it? Okay. Mr. Oberfeld, make the original motion.
I'd like to make a motion to amend the,
G2.
motion to reconsider the consent agenda with G2,
Yes.
item G2.
Which would be adding an additional $6,000 to the original $15,000 expense.
Yes, sir, but we would read that recommendation. We need a second on Mr. Overfeld's motion, then a vote, and then we'll make the recommendation.
I second it, so, second.
Okay, there's a second by Ms. Gonzalez for reconsideration of item G2. Then we'll take a vote. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries to reconsider G2. And now the reading of the amended version.
Okay. I'll read a motion. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the superintendent sign a contract with Sandra Garza in the amount of $21,000 for math curriculum instructional support and resources.
You have heard the recommendation from administration. We'll vote on this as a separate item. All
Yeah.
those in favor, please
Let
indicate.
me
by-
ask a question before
Question.
we vote. So from a documentation standpoint, what do we have to do? Anything? From a documentation standpoint, do we have to do anything to the?
We got a corrected version. Yes. There was a corrected version, Mr. Smith, that was given to us.
What's that? Oh, the handout, okay,
Yeah, separate handout.
got it. And that references the 21,000, yeah, okay, so that's clear, so I'm good.
Good.
Yep.
Okay, then we'll take a vote. If we could vote on, all those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries with the, again, amount corrected.
My
Thank you very
apologies,
much.
Mr. President.
Okay, we go back to item, that's my agenda. We go back to item E, consideration to approve the examination for acceleration and credit for students without prior instruction. Sandra Hernandez.
Good evening once again, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. This item is for approval of examinations for acceleration for credit, but for students without the prior instruction. The State Board of Education recently approved those revised rules on credit by exam that include the new requirement, as mentioned earlier, for districts and assessment providers to audit their credit by exam assessments. The enclosed resolution of the board states that the board must approve at least 4 examinations to the extent available for each subject for acceleration in the elementary grades, and to earn credit in a secondary school academic subject in grades 6 through 12. The Education Code 28.023 requires that the board-approved examinations include advanced placement examinations developed by the College Board and examinations administered through College Level Examination Program, or CLEP. Additionally, the State Board of Education rules further provides that the board may also approve for each high school course examinations developed by Texas Tech University and the University of Texas at Austin. The administration requests for approval the examinations from the University of Texas at Austin and Texas Tech University to be used for acceleration in the elementary grades and for high school credit in order to meet the requirements of the administrative code. And any applicable advanced placement and CLEP examinations for high school credit courses for which an end-of-course assessment is required. And in doing so, the board determines that the certification and audit from these providers demonstrates that the examinations accurately and appropriately assess the students' knowledge and skills of the TEKS for the relevant grade level and subject area.
Questions from board members? That appears on page 99 of your book. Then there being none, could you read the recommendation from administration?
Yes, sir. It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the resolution and the examinations by the College Board, the College Level Examination Program, the University of Texas at Austin, and Texas Tech University for acceleration in an elementary grade and to earn credit in a secondary school academic subject in grades 6 through 12.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion for approval of this recommendation? Ms. Gonzalez, seconded by Mrs. Webb. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next item that we have is item 11A, consideration, curriculum instruction, first of all. Consideration to approve submittal of grant application or applications to expand the career in technical education, CTE, extracurricular robotics program, Ida Gomez and Roger Gonzalez.
Good evening, Mr. Mesa, Dr. Rios, and members of the board. Career and Technical Education is requesting approval to apply for any grant as it relates to robotics competition and STEM for the 2018-2019 school year. The grant has a very limited time frame, sometimes 2 to 3 weeks, period to apply. The grants could include, but not limited to, the following previous grant providers: U.S. First, First in Texas, the Texas Work Commission, Times Warner Cable, or now Spectrum, and Walmart. The grants will allow the CT STEM classes and robotics teams to use these funds for allowable expenses in accordance with the grant requirements, such as supplies, equipment, tournament registration fees, robot kits, robot parts, and field elements.
Question from board members? Mr. Smith?
Did we apply any last year, and if so, did we get any grant monies for that program?
We did apply last year. We did not receive a grant. We have in prior years through First.
Okay.
Other questions? There being none, would you read the recommendation?
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the submittal of the application to U.S. First, First in Texas, Texas Workforce Commission, Time Warner Cable or Spectrum, and Walmart, and other related STEM and robotics grants to expand the CTE classes and extracurricular robotics programs.
You have heard the recommendation from administration. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Mr. Smith?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries. Mr. Smith, were you?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Next item that we have is again 11B, consideration to approve an agreement between San Felipe de Oro CISD and Valverde Nursing and Rehabilitation for the purpose of providing health science technology, certified nursing assistant, students with a training site to conduct the clinical portion requirements of the CNA program. Roger Gonzalez.
Again, good evening, Mr. Mesa and Dr. Rios, members of the board. This memorandum of understanding is to allow the Valverde Nursing and Rehab, a nursing home facility, the opportunity to continue to serve as a clinical training site for students that are enrolled in CNA programs at Del Rio High School. This medical facility will provide students the opportunity to allow their staff to serve as mentors as students practice what they have learned in the classroom and obtain their 40 required hours of training. This agreement will continue to the end of the 2018-29 school year with an automatic renewal for 1 year term unless terminated in accordance with the provisions of this agreement. The MOU is provided for your review under separate cover.
Board members, you will find the memorandum of understanding in the following page after 101 in your board book. Are there any questions from board members? Okay, there being none, would you please read the recommendation, please?
It is a recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the superintendent to sign the agreement with Valverde Nursing and Rehab as presented.
You've heard the recommendation. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Mrs. Gonzalez, seconded by Mr. Overfeld. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item 11C, consideration to approve an agreement between San Felipe del Rio CISD and Valverde Regional Medical Center for the purpose of providing medical assistant MA students training sites to conduct administrative and clinical, it's supposed to be internships, right?
Workplace experience.
It says externships, but I think,
Internships, yes.
is it internships?
Yes.
Internships. Okay, Roger Gonzalez.
This memorandum of understanding is to allow the Valverde Regional Medical Center, Rural Health Clinics, Valverde Specialty Service, and Valverde Regional Institute for Therapeutic Medicine to serve as clinical training sites for students that are enrolled in the new medical assistant program at Del Rio High School. This medical facilities will provide students a clinical experience as they shadow health science professionals and practice what they have learned in class and retain their 8 to 10 hours per year. This agreement will continue to the end of the 2018-29 school year with the automatic renewal for 1 year unless terminated in accordance with this agreement. This is not required for the medical assistant program. This is something that I wanted to expose the students to provide them a hands-on opportunity as we start this new medical assistant program.
Wonderful. I applaud you for that, sir. Anyone entering any type of medical training is able to find a job immediately because that's something that is always going to be available 24/7 and every month of the year, regarding of how the finance goes in regard to the ups and downs of the economy. The medical field is always wide open. You have heard the information. Are there any questions in regard to this item? Okay, the recommendation, please.
It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the superintendent to sign the agreement with Valverde Regional Medical Center as presented.
You've heard the recommendation. I'll entertain a motion for approval. Mrs. Webb, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're down to item 14, Human Resources. Consideration to approve updates for the 2018-2019 district compensation plans. Aide Garcia.
Good evening again. We're here to request an update to the compensation pay plan, specifically to the auxiliary pay plan under pay grade 2. There was a discrepancy in the maximum amount. It read $16.33 instead of $16.36.
So this is basically a correction.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any questions from board members? I think we received all that information in the updates with the highlights. There being no questions, would you please read the recommendation?
Yes, sir. It is the recommendation of the administration that the Board of Trustees approve the updates to the 2018-2019 district compensation plans as presented.
You've heard the recommendation from administration. I will entertain a motion for approval. Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All those in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. The time is 7:57. We will now go into closed session. If a final vote is required on any matter considered in closed session, it shall be taken either upon reconvening to the public session covered by this notice or a subsequent duly posted public meeting as the board shall determine. We're going into, again, executive session or closed session pursuant to Texas Education Code 551.071, consultation with an attorney, 551.082, school children, school district employees, disciplinary matter or complaint. One being a level 3 hearing, Brenda Halomos, pursuant to 551.074, discussion of personnel and to hear complaints against personnel, 551.071, consultation, private consultation with the board's attorney, and discussion of personnel report to include new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations, and reassignments. And pursuant to 551.071, again, consultation with attorney, discussion of resolution of the Board of Trustees confirming purpose of tax ratification election and determination of necessary uses of surplus tax revenues. We're now in closed session. Okay, the time is 10:04 p.m. We will now reconvene in open session. No action was taken in executive session. We're down to item 17A, level 3 hearing, Brenda Halomos. Is there a motion? Hearing no motion, we will go to item 17B, consideration to approve the personnel report to include the following: new hires, district vacancies, retirements, resignations. Aide Garcia.
Good evening again. It is the recommendation of the administration to approve the following new personnel: Stephanie Samarripa, kinder bilingual teacher at Ruben Chavira Elementary; Sylvia Matus, counselor at Buena Vista Elementary; Angelica Vivian Franjol, English language art teacher at Del Rio High School; Eligio Castañeda, science teacher at SGLC; Maria Padilla, HR coordinator; any questions?
You've heard the recommendation by administration. Is there a motion for approval? Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We're down to item 17C, consideration to approve the resolution of Board of Trustees confirming purpose of tax ratification, election, and determination of necessary uses of surplus tax revenues as discussed in closed session. Questions? I'll entertain a motion for approval. Mr. Smith, seconded by Mr. Overfeld. All in favor, please indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Next item we have is item 18, Superintendent's Report.
Yes, Mr. Mesa, we have discussed and plan to have a accountability curriculum workshop for this coming Monday, a week from today. I'll share with the board that there are a couple of additional items that we'd like to include and take action on at that time, specifically the insurance recommendation. So I hope that we have a quorum and hopefully presentation, everyone's presence, because we will have that item and possibly one other item that are important, but we'll certainly poll the board before then to see who's coming and then advise you as to those items that we want to bring forward, Mr. Mesa.
Okay. Any addition that you would like to get some more information during this September 24th workshop? Is anything else to add? Okay, then we're good. So, board members, if you could schedule that in your calendar. Question from Mrs. Webb.
Dr. Rios, can we include in there or at a different time a presentation from the Head Start program? Or do you want that in a separate item?
It'll probably come at the next curriculum workshop. For this one, we have 3 campuses scheduled, but we can certainly talk about that being part of one of the next workshops.
Definitely. That way we can be in compliance with our governance part as well.
Sure.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. At this time, there are no other item on the agenda. I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Mr. Overfeld, seconded by Mr. Contreras. All in favor, please indicate by raising. Motion carries. Meeting is ended. Thank you very much, and have a good night.